think so.
I wasn't aware of that.
Hang on, Anne, we've only just started. I can't deal with this level
sorry. It's Parry.
What subject are we doing tonight?
Hang on a minute, I gotta do names a minute, right? What name are you, Bill? Right, we're gonna do you call the Right Honourable Bill.
Right, that'll suit me, thank you. Right on. I've never been a right on before, or even a hon. I've been a dis-hon.
Hang on. All right then. The right on.
You can just put me Anne. Low. Oh, I don't mind Christine, but I'm Christine Low.
Call me what you will. You are the right on, Bill.
The right honourable Bill. Right. Anne, anything you want to tell us today?
I put Doyle in my... No, you mean archaeological?
Yeah. Yes, please.
No, I haven't got any news. But I haven't written it down anyway.
Yeah, right, Anne, that's fine. We've had enough. Right, go for anything you want to tell us.
Well, first of all, Carl, I don't want to be disrespectful to you, and I do respect you. But can we finish at a reasonable time tonight? Because 9:15, I've had enough.
Yeah,
I'm tired, and that's my request.
Okay.
Well, the thing is, we all want to go and watch Shetland.
Anne, for God's sake, let him talk. Right. Okay. Then. Okay. You got a good point. Right. You got a very good point. We're starting this time so that we can finish on a reasonable time. So, yeah.
That's good.
So,
well, the other thing I sent yesterday, I sent you an article about the greatest archaeological find in Central Asia ever. Don't know where you saw it.
Oh.
On the Silk Road.
Yeah.
It's an Iron Age town.
Oh.
Did you see it?
Yeah, I did see it, and I'm struggling to try and fit her in tonight, so I will put that in next week.
I'll have a good look at it because it's really interesting. Yeah. Yeah,
no, I saw it, and I just thought that would be really good for sort of next week because it's about. Well, no, it's the biggest find ever. Okay. On the planet, right? On the planet.
Other than that, otherwise hurting your feelings. That's all I've got.
No, you haven't hurt my feelings. I like honesty. Oh, by the way, have you had something in the post, Bill? Goff?
Yes. Thank you. How much do I owe you?
I just leave it, right?
Oh, all right.
I'm going to start taking notes.
Anne, for God's sake! Right, Bill.
Nothing at all, Carl. Sorry.
There wasn't.
And Anne, thank you, Henry.
Keep it short. I was going to mention the same thing as Goff about the massive Bronze Age city discovered. Yeah,
but you've just it's almost as if you said it's like a minor find. You know, this is the most important find ever.
But you haven't talked about it.
Yeah, but look, I'll keep it for next week. Do you realise the amount of stuff I want to do tonight? Thank you.
Well, you'll have to cut it down.
All right, Anne, for God, look, Anne, what is this? The Anne bloody...
Well, they were getting rather excited about an old whale head that they picked up somewhere. No, they buried it years ago, and then they dug it up, and then they're going to put it in a museum. Just so, just for fun.
I think, Anne, I am totally and utterly speechless. I really am.
Well, it was a university, and they did do, biology and things like that. Paleontology. No, not paleontology.
Okay, Anne, we're going to crack on. We're going to crack on with it. Okay.
Okay.
Right. Good. Yeah. See what? And Henry just added Anne in, Pat in.
Yeah, successfully.
Yeah, see, you
Oh, Pat's iPhone.
yeah. Sometimes I teach these every Wednesday, right? And I do lose the will to live.
Oh,
Yeah, guys, just don't take it personally, right? But I do. I you know, you do lose me sometimes. And I actually thought, right, when it was mentioned that I should look at somebody's honeymoon location, right? I will not mention any names. I thought this was great. Now, Pestum is one of those localities that you will recognize from two key Hollywood epics. And don't all shout out at once. But my notes tonight said Boudica and look at some Roman remains from across the planet, right? So it's turned out loads of stuff tonight, and I mentioned Boudica at the end for 5 minutes, and that's it, because I managed to fill it with lots of different things. So one of the key moments, one of the key things that was being discussed last night was how in some cultures history and archaeology is retained and preserved, i.e., you've got Paestum, which was a Greek colony, which the Romans took on board, and it's still here today. I think that's really, really interesting. And I just thought, as a few images of this massive city of incredible size, and basically that's basically the wall that goes around it, right? So they've only excavated part of Paestum, and there's 3 massive temples there. So what we've got the 2 temples of Hera, and we've got another temple of Athena. These temples themselves, if you don't all shout out at once, you can actually see them in the film Jason and the Argonauts in 1963 and 1981 in the film Clash of the Titans. But the point being made is that the fact that these monuments, and there's actually 3 of them, because there's another one over there, the Temple of Athena, these 3 monuments are still with us today. Now, as part of my research, which is to do with a character, to do with the Second World War, I went down a little avenue today, and I just thought, what happened to East Prussia after the Second World War? It ceased to exist, and most of the buildings associated with the Prussians that used to be part of the German Reich up until 1945, most of the buildings were destroyed and removed to eradicate the memory of Germany from East Prussia, which is now part of Poland. And I'm thinking that's in the modern day and age. And the reason why I mention that is that the Romans didn't do the same with lots of the cultures they were coming across. And that's a really interesting thing. We think that some cultures are quite barbaric. And in fact, I'm going to mention another one, that when we look at, for example, the Islamic world, it's only in modern times that the Islamic world has taken to destroying archaeological sites that don't agree with their sort of teachings. But way back, for example, we look at the Islamic world and we look at ancient Egypt. Lots of the sites in ancient Egypt remained, and the sense of architecture, the sense of influence went into the idea of this new Islamic culture that was developing when it had captured Egypt quite early on in the late 600s. And then we look at another parallel when we look at the Moors in Spain, for example, in the 1400s. We see that lots of Moorish art has actually remained intact in Spain. And I really think that that's really interesting. And the point I would like to make is that cultures are really advanced and to be respected in history, like Alexander the Great, and like Mehmed the second, when he actually captured Constantinople, and we've got the Hagia Sophia still standing in. It was just converted into a huge mosque, and all the stuff remained in there. Right? When you've got cultures that sort of heap around them reminders of the past, I think they're the better cultures. So mentioning Pestum, not so much in passing tonight, and what we've got the three big temples there. The first temple of Hera that probably goes back all the way to about 600 years BC, and this is actually part of a Greek colony, Grecia Magna, Great Greece in Italy, actually,
Really?
south of Rome, and it's a site that we could think of in poetic terms, but it's not a site that people really discussed up until about 300 years ago, right? There's so much in regards to archaeology on the planet that doesn't get a mention. And there's one example of a piece of archaeology today from Herefordshire that I will challenge anyone that they know its existence or not. There's a major Roman site in Herefordshire, right, where we've got walls of a tower standing 4 meters tall, right? And I found it earlier on this year whilst I was doing research for my daily Roman series on YouTube. And the point is that when one of the comments made last night was thank you for taking us to these places. So again, still in Pestum, the lower temple of Hera, 600 years BC, and the upper temple of Hera, and that dates from about 450 BC. And then we've got the temple of Athena, and you're looking at these and you're thinking they are very familiar to Jason the Argonauts, Clash of the Titans, and other Hollywood films. And I think that's like a tribute to how useful our past can be. Because today I've been wandering around, sort of, there's where Pestum is. I've been wandering around sort of in West Wales and thinking, what is the point in history, archaeology, and heritage, right? The answer is this is the point in history, archaeology, and heritage when it's actually being used as part of the modern day and age. And there we've got the Temple of Athena there, and we've got the two temples of Hera. We've got the amphitheaters of Pestum. I believe there's 2 from the images that we're looking at. And one of the questions was is this Temple of Athena, right, the north of the 3 temples, is this Temple of Athena, has that been reconstructed? And then I basically said, well, look at that. If that had been reconstructed, they didn't do a good job of reconstruction, right?
No.
Because that would all be smashed up. And look at that one, you know, when you think about reconstruction, right? If somebody's gonna reconstruct that, right? Look at that there. They've not done a good job of it. And then there was another point made last night, which was by me and Andy, that what is the past, right? When do we actually see the past? Bill's been Bill out of all of you has been to so many archaeological and historical sites that I don't think me and Bill will be able to recount all the ones that we've been to together. And there's so many of the places that we've been to. Sometimes we're looking at stuff and thinking, what is real here? What is being reconstructed or not? And I think this is a really important thing, that we've got to know what we're looking at. And one thing that is being challenged in sort of the acting world as well. So I'm in sort of 2 camps here, is that when you're looking at stuff on TV, are you looking at AI or are you looking at the real thing, right? And that is a problem. And it's the same with history and archaeology. When you go to the likes of Pompeii, which is just down the road from Pestum, right? That when you go to the likes of Pompeii and you're thinking, well, what is actually reconstructed and what isn't? And whilst I'm going through lots of paperwork, I remember I probably got rid of about 5,000 sheets of paper the other day that are to do with basically my research, letters, all sorts of things. I just burnt loads of stuff, right? Because I just can't store it anymore. But I do come across bits and pieces that I'm thinking that was great. And I actually come across a letter from the museum at Pompeii. And it was like an aerial view of Pompeii. And I thought, oh my God, that's the best thing I've seen of Pompeii. And it was taken in the 1980s. And I'm going to take a photograph of that and show you next week alongside that article that you mentioned about the Silk Route and the Iron Age site. So look at that there, and you're thinking, ooh, that looks so perfect. And you just start to think, when was Greece? When was Rome? When was history? What are we looking at? And what we're looking at is something that's Roman. No, it's not. It's Greek. We're looking at something that survived in the Roman period, that become Roman, that was associated with the Roman Empire. And then this is then associated with every other empire that's been in Italy since. It's because it's survived. That's become part of the history. And I think that's really, really important that we think that the history has to be relevant to us. It can't be kept in aspic in museums, and we've got to pay to see it, and we've got to sort of, oh, look at that thing in the glass cabinet. It's so inaccessible, right? And then they get stolen and they get melted down and they get lost forever. Something like this is real. It's part of our consciousness. To be part of films, to be part of what we feel about what the past is. The past is to be real, right? Strabo writing about this landscape. Strabo, the Roman Greek writer. Now, this guy is writing about these sites 500 years later, right? After they've been there. So the other thing that we've got to think about is what people in the past felt about these monuments, what they really felt about these monuments. Because I mentioned Strabo. There's a Roman writer that wrote about Stonehenge. So the Roman writer's writing about Stonehenge, and he's just saying, like, these are really old monuments, right? Bloody hell, they were old to the Roman. They were 2,000 years old to the Roman 2,000 years ago. So, and the point is, with that, I've just made a statement, right? And the statement that I've made is that Stonehenge survived. That's an important point. Stonehenge survived. Avebury survived the Romans, right? Lots of monuments survived the Romans. Why? So, Stonehenge and Avebury would have been brilliant in the Roman period as quarries. When you look at places like Wiltshire, there isn't really good building stone. Okay, you've got a few slabs on Marlborough Down, and that's it. Good glacial Marlborough, glacial stones. But why didn't they destroy these monuments in the Roman period? Why didn't they destroy Stonehenge? And the answer is because it meant something to them. It meant something to the new culture that is now in Britain, or the new culture that is in Italy, right? And this is going to sound really weird, right? Even though these existed, they weren't rediscovered because they'd always been there, right? But there were little mentions in 1524 by a historian known as Pietro Sommonte, right? But it was only when you get to the mid 1700s that these monuments are actually properly discovered by the Western world. And then they start to influence the Western world. Sometimes when I'm writing my column in the Barron District News each week, which I actually said to Michelle, I actually enjoy writing this column now because I got people writing to me that actually read a physical newspaper and actually write stuff to me, and I actually put them in the articles. And often when I'm writing that, I'm always thinking about these ancient worlds, and I'm thinking, can I add these little things into my column? Things like this, things like this beautiful Temple of Hera at Paestum, and think about the steps and thinking about what we're looking at. and the person in the break who went here on a honeymoon can make themselves known or not. But if they want to talk about this, the impression that they had in the break, and say what they felt in seeing this, what we're seeing is also they saw this in the real, but these things are still there. And that is not much different from that, right? It's there in the consciousness. And I think it's a sense of rediscovering the rediscovery of the past, and allowing our past to sort of enter our consciousness. So one of the things with this is that this was part of the Grand Tour in the mid 1700s, right? People from Britain, people from Germany, France, Spain would have gone on the Grand Tour, right? And they would have seen these places, and they would have gone on with sketches and ideas to tell people that these things exist. Like eventually they'd go to ancient Egypt, and like the way they would go to the likes of Petra and so on. So this is one of, I think, two theatres that we've actually got at this site, because this one is not this one. And this one itself probably dating from about 600 years BC. I looked at this and I thought, oh my God, I can remember the moment in the film. I can't remember if it's Jason the Argonauts or Clash of the Titans, but I can remember the moment. I think it was one of the gods allowing, was it Jason to go off and fight? I can't remember which film. It's a bit of a blur, but the thing is, I just thought these are brilliant for film sets, and it offers a reinvention of the past. And this is what the past is constantly. It is a reinvention. It's a play on looking at something to allow it to refresh our minds and to allow our minds to expand. So when people are, when the Taliban are blowing up the Brahmin statues in 2001 in Afghanistan, you think, well, what the hell are they doing? Why do they need to do this? Right? We're not in 1945. We're not in Pol Pot's Cambodia where we've got to start again. Right? These things are relevant, and why can't they be relevant in all cultures? Whoever is minded to take over the worlds that they now inhabit, because that's all we're doing. We're inhabiting the space. Whenever we go to a museum, we're inhabiting that space. Whenever we go to Grand House, we're inhabiting that space. And it's so sad to think of other cultures destroying things when it's a world culture which is relevant. Do you know what? So I went on. So obviously, Pestum, thanks to the person who mentioned this, who can make themselves known in a break if they so wish. But I went around the world, and I thought, I've got to find this Roman villa in Africa that's really well preserved. I deliberately found it, and I didn't find it because I'll do that for another day. And weirdly enough, I found this. This is actually in the beating, pulsating heart of Rome. This isn't too far away from the Colosseum. This is actually a theatre. And I looked at that and I squinted my eyes. And Bill, I can't even bloody remember if you went on the Colchester trip with me, but whoever came out with me in the evening on the Colchester trip, we went around the city, and we went to a place that they had a reconstruction of a theatre that once existed in Colchester, and this image reminded me of it. But this is still standing in Rome. This is still there. This is known as the Theatre of Marcellus. Now, the Theatre of Marcellus is a really interesting theatre. And there's a link with this building because it was commissioned by Julius Caesar. I think it was started in 46 BC, and it was completed by Augustus after Caesar's death, and it was in tribute to Augustus's nephew, Marcus Claudius Marcellus. Claudius, a link with Roman Britain again, right? Who died in 23 BC, that this building, he managed to get this building completed. So it's like a miniature Colosseum, right? Miniature Colosseum. But this ties in with the Pestum discussion, and it ties in with what we're doing in all ways, because this monument itself is actually Well, yeah, here we go. It was transformation over time following the decline of the Roman Empire. The theatre was neglected and fell into disuse. But by the medieval period, it was turned into a home. First of all, it was like a bit of a castle or a fortified area. How you fortify this, I don't know. By the 1500s, the Savelli family used this as a palace. They actually converted this into a palace, this wonderful building into a palace. And you're thinking, well, look at that there. And you're thinking that reconstruction. So I'm squinting and thinking Colchester. But unfortunately, the theatre at Colchester was about a quarter of the size of this. And although their reconstruction of the building looked basically like this, it was a lot smaller in Colchester. But the one in Colchester didn't survive. Note the word didn't, right? Now, I haven't used the words quality, right? Maybe the stuff in Rome, maybe the stuff at Paestum, maybe the stuff at Nîmes, maybe the Pont de Gard was made in a far superior way to the Roman stuff made in Britain. But I am wrong with that statement, because Geoffrey of Monmouth speaks of the vaulted bathhouse at Caerleon, and he's talking in the mid 1100s, and he's talking, we've got these vaulted buildings in Caerleon still standing, and I'm thinking, well, what happened to them? They were demolished. But then again, why wasn't this demolished? So is it back to the fact that the stuff in Britain was not as superior built as this stuff? However, even these buildings, as you can see, the upper floors are part of this building. The marble's been ripped away for that to be placed into lime kilns for them to produce very high quality lime for the construction of St. Peter's Square. So this is amazing. And what is it doing now? So the municipality of Rome basically demolished all the crap that wasn't Roman, right? And when it says the municipality of Rome demolished buildings that had been constructed under the arches, basically they're referring to a scheme funded by Mussolini to actually clear away the old stuff and allow this stuff to breathe. Now, this is actually used as flats. People actually live in this building. They live. They look out onto this area. They actually live in this building, and I think that's absolutely amazing. Sort of that we've got a piece of history that is actually giving homes to people today. And what they say that that even today that people perform plays and street exhibitions within these ruins in front. So even though the theatre is now occupied by people living, the people living are now looking out onto performances of theatrical productions within this set of ruins in front. And there's another point here that I just wanted to make from this image. Now, if you want to see what a Roman road looks like, well, they should be paved like this. So there we go. I just thought I'd chuck that in there. But again, when we're thinking about things hidden around the corner, I made a statement last night that if you're ever going to go to the beating heart of Rome and you just want to go stay around the Colosseum and, Trajan's Column and all the rest of it, right, make a little bit of a map and just see all the Roman stuff, right, in the Forum, and just see there's loads more out there in Rome than meets the eye, right? And that's a few days just to see the stuff. And it's not just the Colosseum, as we already know. There's a lot more to see. And again, once cladded with marble, but it's still there today and beautiful when this links in with what we're doing in theatre and something what I do. So it's so good being in that world of sort of archaeology, history, and acting. This is the theatre of Marcellus. Marcellus. Basically, this is associated with the nephew of Augustus Octavian, the first Roman emperor. So when you think about Pantheon, Colosseum, there it is, the theatre of Marcellus, the Trevi Fountain, and you've got all that stuff in the sort of the Circus Maximus that actually somebody mentioned last night. So we've got all this stuff going on in the beating part of Rome. And there it goes, apartment, the upper stories of the ancient structure inhabited today, constant venue out there, the Theatre of Marcellus is mentioned there. And again, I think when people see that history is valuable and as varied as it can be, it remains within the consciousness of many people. And the same thing, here we go, the other way around, the same thing when you look at reconstructed German cities today, and you look at all the medieval stuff that they've reconstructed and so on. That's brilliant. That sort of brings another part of the past to us because people are proud of it. And I think it's being proud of the past that allows the past to be appreciated by all of us. Now, where's that book which I had earlier on, which I don't seem to have in front of me, but last week I actually showed the front cover of a book, and this was on the front cover of the book, and I said, find out where this image on the front cover of the book is. And I basically, there it is, it's Blackstone Edge on Risworth Moor near Manchester. We'll do this again, but I just wanted to answer that question. So it's a mile-long stretch of remarkably well preserved with rain gullies and close-fitting cobble still intact. Some archaeologists believe it to be of Roman origin, whilst others are less convinced. I'm not convinced, and it's likely to have been built in the 1700s. But some people have actually said, well, actually, it was definitely built by the Romans, but then in the 1700s they added to it. And I'm thinking, well, you don't get gullies like that in most Roman roads. And again, this is the point when you're getting attracted to genuine things that are historical, whether they're medieval, whether they're Roman, whether they're like Stonehenge, where in fact, if you look at images of Stonehenge from about 1870, 1880, right? Stonehenge looks very different because they've mucked around with it since. Now, I would prefer the 1870s version of Stonehenge, which hasn't really been mucked around with from the point that they deserted it 3,000 years ago, right? That's what I would like to see. I know you can't keep everything in aspic, but one thing I would like to know is what is the real thing. I need to make up my own mind. And there's a Roman site up in Cumbria called Hard Knot. I don't know if anyone's ever been there, but I've been up there several times. And the lady that I was engaged to at the time, I can remember we engaged the car and we drove up this steep hill and it stalled, right? It's so steep to get to this Hard Knot place. We eventually got over there, right? So when we went to this Hard Knot, we've been there a couple of times. I did a couple of videos there. And when we went to Hard Knot, it was brilliant to see one little detail, right? And the little detail, folks, was quite subtle. You had a little sign, it said, above this line is where they reconstructed after the 1920s. And you know what? I appreciated that because I could make up my own mind. What I was seeing was original Roman masonry, and the stuff above was what somebody else wanted us to see. So I could imagine that the stuff above the reconstruction, basically what they did, they put a red, not a red, speak again, they put a black layer of stone above the Roman stuff, and then the reconstructed stuff was built above that. So you had like another half a meter above. And I really appreciated that. And I actually appreciated it all because the stuff reconstructed is part of the archaeology, but I can know what is the reconstructed archaeology and what isn't, right? And that is really, really important for me. And and I like the site. I really do, because I know what I'm seeing and I know what I'm explaining. Because I'll tell you a little bit of a story, and it's a damn right shame that Richard isn't with us tonight, right? In the 1950s, 1960s, Barry Castle, they were clearing it of all the bracken and brush, right? And they get rid of that. And basically, there's a little. I'll just sketch it here, right? There's a little bit of a wall here, right? And there's a gap, and there's a little bit of a wall here. And then you've got a doorway here, and it goes on to the rest of the wall, and you've got the rest of the castle, right? So this thing here, right, this gap, right, is interesting. So what the council said, they didn't ask the archaeologist what was in the blue thing. The archaeologists had excavated it, and the archaeologists had worked out that the wall had continued. But the council didn't listen to the archaeologists, right? Basically, so what they did, they put a wall that way, right? So when people go to Barry Castle, they think that there was another room here and there was another room here, when in fact, this area here is the courtyard. But now, right, now the problem is that wall that they're showing as right angles cannot be removed because the site is a scheduled protected ancient monument, which would be an offence to move that. So in other words, where the cross is will remain there forever, and people might think that that is part of the archaeology when it's in fact not.
No.
And that is a problem with history and archaeology. So this is back.
I've been to Barry Castle, yeah.
Oh, right, I thought you meant you've been, yeah.
No.
I would have, yeah, Barry Castle. So it's like you've probably been there with me about 10 times exactly. But when you're looking at Black Stonehenge like this, I feel I've come across my old textbook the other day when I was going through all this stuff, right? And I thought, right, do I keep my old history textbook from when I was 11 and 12? I thought, yes, I do. And you know why? I can use it for teaching, because the reason why I can use it for teaching is when I say, what were we taught at school, right? Bill can say, this is what I was taught at school, but Bill could be telling fibs. I'm not saying you're telling fibs, Bill, but memory alters what you think. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through these textbooks, and one evening I'm going to basically spend about 20 minutes. And I'm going to say, this is what we were taught at school. Were they right or wrong with all those years of wisdom behind me? Right. And one of the things I have been saying is that the history teacher was obsessed with, Roman roads and stuff. Or was he? Right. So I got to be fair to him, and I got to look at these books. And one thing that I can remember, I was sat here today, and I thought I was making a cup of tea, I think. And I thought, I thought, well, the person who actually really inspired me with history was, strangely enough, the same history teacher that I criticize. And maybe I'm not being fair to him, and I haven't actually mentioned his name. So I need to rectify that in my own mind, and I need to give him where it's due. Thank you very much, teacher. So, but I need to look at the stuff that you taught us and whether I've been right or wrong in what I've said. So I went out again, and I looked, and I did find this place in Africa that I wanted to show you tonight, which I've decided not to show you because I want to show you this. And this is actually the grottos of Catullus. Now, Catullus was actually sort of like an academic, right? Catullus wrote lyrical poems, and Catullus's work was rediscovered in the 1400s AD, 600 years ago. So what Catullus wrote about was, this is actually to be found there near Milan, between Milan and Venice. And it's known as the Grottos of Catullus. And the reason why it's known as the Grottos of Catullus, because in a poem, the 31st poem of Catullus, which was found in the 1400s, Catullus writes the following. The poet describes his return to his beloved house, Simeone, inspired the connection with the Roman villa. Its remains there still visible. And going back to the 1400s, although mostly covered with vegetation and buried to the point that it looked like a cave. So this villa was attributed to Catullus in 1483. So this hypothesis was later taken up by scholars, and it's associated with the poet. There is no hard evidence to identify Catullus's house. It is a bit big for a poet, to be honest with you. However, the term has remained and is still in use today. So again, the interesting thing is that this is one of those places that was also discovered in the 1500s, because there's the Marquis of D'Este visited this place, and also the Italian architect Andrea Palladio, who studied the villa's construction and techniques. And that then led me on to something else, because that led me on to making another statement last night. Because when you look at this, right, this is Roman, right? But when you look at this, it looks very medieval, right? So that reminds me of something else, which is something that people don't talk about, which I haven't got images of tonight, which I may have should have, but I thought this as I was talking last night, so I didn't put it in, right? So when we think about influence of history and archaeology, which is like the theme tonight, isn't it? Really, when we talk about the history influence of history and archaeology, I think about Edward I, right? What? When we think about Edward I, we think about the Mason Saint
James of St. George.
That's the one. You just got me as I was about to say it. Well done. And then basically what we've got the Mason constructing Carnarvon Castle. Now, Carnarvon Castle, being constructed but for Edward I, using Edward I money in the years 1290s, right, and other places, but Carnarvon is very specific. Carnarvon is said to have been influenced by the construction of the walls of Constantinople, right, and other military works in the East, right? And when you can work out that when you think about Roman buildings and this type of building here, right, you could think that Roman architecture is really influencing the Norman, and then the likes of Edward I with his castle building, particularly in Wales. And when you look at Carnarvon Castle, actually, do you know what? Let's just chuck an in of Carnarvon Castle so you get the point. Not rammed down, but you'll see what I mean. So if you think about Carnarvon Castle, hang on, Carnarvon Castle. There it is. What we're going to do, Carnarvon Castle. Right. Oh, I wish they'd get a good image up for me, which will be really good. Hang on a minute. Let's see if we can see the walls from outside. No, we're looking at aerial views. There. That's the one I want to look at. There. If you can see the walls at Carnarvon Castle, right? It's upside down. You can clearly see the walls of Carnarvon Castle, and they are influenced. The hexagonal walls, the walls themselves, there's some banding of stone in there as well. They are particularly influenced by walls of Roman construction that influenced the medieval builders in Britain, particularly the likes of Carnarvon Castle. And Roman architecture is very much present in the palette of the Norman Mason and the late Norman Masons in the 1200s, and you can clearly see this on display at Carnarvon Castle. So that's that point made. So you've seen, and again, when we're thinking about this wonderful set of archaeology, and you know, you can see that is a massive expanse of archaeology, loads of it. Lots of it is under trees and stuff today, but Catullus, if this was his home, he would have been extremely wealthy. You're talking about, in modern day money, probably a multi-millionaire, probably a billionaire. And that's what it probably looked like. And it was marble throughout, very rich Italian quarried blue marble and white marble and all the rest of it in the construction of this, going all the way to the north of Italy. And this is said to be one of the finest pieces of Roman archaeology before we get to the Alps. And obviously, it's not the last piece of fine Roman archaeology. After, when you get to the Alps, there's loads of stuff in Germany and France and all the rest of it, and bits in Britain as well. So last night, I managed to get to this. And this is where we had our break last night. But I then realised that maybe last night we didn't finish until I think 22:10, right? And I had a half a class last night, so that was a bit weird. But this site itself, when I was looking for this Roman villa, this one of the finest pieces of Roman architecture in Africa, and one of the finest pieces of architecture in the Roman world still standing. It took me to this site, which is in fact Volubilis. And Volubilis it then ties us in with the likes of Caracalla. And look at that archaeology there, and you're thinking, hang on a minute, Mauritania, and you're thinking, well, this, modern day Morocco, basically, and you're thinking, well, the landscape's green, it's green. And I just sort of, I thought that when I was looking at this, and I thought, well, okay, we'll just have a little bit of an image there. And there's a few sort of parallels with this landscape. So this was probably formerly, these are some of the finer remains at Volubilis, and I'm really struggling to work out whether that's actually reconstructed or not. And so built in a fertile agricultural area, it developed from the 200 years BC onward as a Berber stroke Carthaginian settlement, before being the capital of the Kingdom of Mauritania, which is a kingdom that nobody ever hears about. We mentioned the Kingdom of Mauritania when we were talking about the Carthaginians, but that was the last time. And then eventually this fell to the Romans. And we're talking about it's part of the Mauritanian world, and it eventually falls to the Romans, probably sometime, we think about AD 40, somewhere around there, probably a population of about 20,000 people, the usual gladiatorial spectacles, had commodities such as grain, olive oil. It was a very rich, fertile landscape. Again, it's in a landscape that you're thinking, this can't be fertile, but yes, it is. This is part of the great Roman world. But there's a link here with, if you could do a little bit more research, and we might actually come back to the site again. There's a triumphal arch here associated with Caracalla, right? The Roman Emperor Caracalla, who was obviously replaced his dad, Septimus Severus, who was actually of African birth, Leptus Magna in Africa. Septimus Severus was black, right? He was a black Roman emperor. So there's no reason why his son, heir apparent, doesn't actually go to places like places in Morocco and one of the cities of the Roman world, Volubilis. So population of about 20,000 people. But the other weird thing is that this was again a Pax Romana city. The Berber population of Morocco, who have links with the Canary Islands, which is a weird known fact. And then by 285, the city was just abandoned, right? It was completely abandoned. Why it was completely abandoned, we don't really know. Maybe the civil wars of the later Roman Empire in the 280s. Maybe there was it was too difficult to keep these things going, so the city was abandoned and it fell out of the Roman world. But again, it's well worth a little bit of a study. It's well worth visiting. And there's a little thing as well, a little bit more information, another image. Again, you can visit all these places and you can put a lot into it and you can sort of show a lot more. But what I might do is actually, because Goff wants us to finish at 9 by about 9:15 tonight. So I think if we're going to have a little break now, if we have a little sort of just under 15-minute break, so we'll come back at sort of 8:15. But we've got to see if there's any questions first. So we've got Sardinia to visit next. And we've got this amazing Roman site I wanted to show you. Well, I think it's amazing anyway. You might not think it's amazing, but for me, this site in Hereford with this big Roman tower, Roman masonry, still standing. There's nothing to do with the Roman city, Kent Church or anything. It's in the middle of nowhere, and I want to show you that after the break. So no guesses. If any of you have been there, right? National Trust. There you go. Anne, anything you want to say?
Well, before photography and the grand tours, I'm sure people were inspired by paintings of the great masters like Titian and Carlonetto, who painted, they did include some of the, Greek and Roman buildings, but of course they were perfect. They looked perfect. And
but Pestum is perfect, isn't it?
But that
what I mean?
encouraged people to go, to go and see them. So don't forget the artists.
We won't forget the artist. We will not forget the artist. And basically for you, Anne, because that's your interest. Let's sort of here we go. Rediscovery. Piranesi, Giovanni Battista Piranesi etchings of the likes of Pestum in 1778. You've got a Spanish Velasquez who's also painting it in 1837, and you've got Joseph Pennell Pestum in 1913. So it's part of that sort of architectural artistic world. Thank you for that.
Okay.
Right, Goff, anything you want to say, darling?
No, that's very good so far. Thank you.
And Goff, I don't mind you taking me to task to, if you've got a set time, you want to, you want us to draw us in, then I'm happy with that.
It was 9 o'clock, really, but.
Oh, shut up, Anne! Get away! I got to mention that I've managed to talk Michelle in to see the film Nuremberg with me, so I will not dress up as in a Wehrmacht uniform to go and see it. I don't think that's appropriate. Right, Bill.
Two things. Whenever I see an image of some of the old Greek temples, obviously all the roofs have gone. Now I assume it was all timber trusses along the length of the building, but I've never seen anything which suggests what sort of tiles they would use. The Romans had tiles. What were the ancient Greeks? What did they clad the building with? There must have been some sort of tile material. But so something must have been found close to these ruin sites to suggest what the roof cladding was. Have you had any information on that?
I'm going to go with two answers on that. I'm going to go with the fact that we see references of the ancient Greeks, and we see them voting on bits of tile that they've collected because the Greeks voted, So obviously we can associate that you've got pan tiles on the roofs, but there's no discounting a vague reference that I've got of them using wooden tiles on the roof, but don't quote me on that.
If you wooden trusses, what the tiles on top, to keep it watertight, for instance, that sort of thing.
But obviously you could have wooden tiles on roof as well. You could have cedar tiles on the roof. You see this being used in Scandinavian countries. You see this being used in the likes of America, and also wooden tiles on a roof would be lighter than heavy clay or heavy stone tiles.
Never heard that one before. Anyway, the second point, the so-called Roman road on Blackstone Edge, that central drain channel is weird because I can't see what it's doing. It will collect water, fill up and run down and run off. So I have no idea what that is. It certainly doesn't look Roman to me.
No, it's not. It's not. I don't think it is Roman at all. But basically what it is lots of people have been stabbing at anything that looks remotely Roman in Britain to be Roman. And as you know, I don't go with that. In Wales, you've got half a dozen San Helens, and it's just like thinking, well, come on, be real.
Yeah. that central channel is a mystery. I can't see
Yeah,
practically
exactly.
what it does actually. No, you can't.
The problem is with a central channel like that, if it's raining heavily, right, that's going to wash anybody down the hill who's actually got any umpkin to actually go up the hill in the first place.
Spill over.
Draining channels should be on the left and the right, not in the middle of the road. But
Yeah.
there is one thing, Bill. You must have been on walks with me where we're going along a footpath and there's the rain has channeled out the middle of the footpath.
Oh.
If you say so, Carl, I can't remember, but yeah.
Well, I can. I
Yeah.
thought you were still a rambler, Bill. Anyway,
Yeah.
Pat, anything you want to say before we have our break?
Right,
Yep.
I'm finished.
Sorry, I was late. I
Yeah,
got
I was usually late in the past. Now you're late, Pat.
Oh, yes, you used to be very late.
Oh,
Hey.
shut up, Anne. If you haven't got anything else to say, Pat, I'll move on to Henry. Henry.
I'll own up for Peastrom. That was me, and my wife. So we did a jolly little drive all the way from Amalfi down. It's well worth visiting. It's not busy at all, unlike Pompeii and Herculaneum. We rocked up and didn't even pay to get in.
Oh, that's ideal for a Barry boy.
Oh,
It's splendid. That's if you survive the drive down. It's if you like driving, it's a very interesting road. If you're the passenger, you won't like it at all because most of the
Oh.
time you're hanging over the edge of a cliff.
oh,
Do they drive on the same road as us? Side.
No,
oh,
and it's Italy, so normally it's in the middle.
oh, what
Oh,
a,
right. Okay. Well, that's fine then. That's fine then. We'll
what a
do that. We'll do
lovely
that.
honeymoon.
So
Yeah.
splendid time.
Lovely.
Splendid time. Right. On that note, it's 8:08 now. We'll come back at
Oh, all right.
20. We've got 11 minutes. We'll come back at 20 minutes past 8. And Anne,
Yeah.
chat Bill up on the way.
Go on, man, chat me up.
Oh no, I gotta get up because I'll get stiff.
Right, here we go.
And I'm gonna make a cup of coffee.
You make a cup of Yeah,
me too.
Oh,
I'll put Classic FM on.
I have trouble with my knees now, Bill.
Right then.
Getting to that age.
What, you need a cup of coffee?
No, I'm getting to. I said I have trouble with my knees.
Oh, wow.
I'm getting that age.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
very common ailment, Dan. Yeah.
Ian Raising and handful of lovers, Martin Neary conducting the English Chamber Pairs and singers. Welcome to Wednesday evening on Classic FM. Seb Soames with you for another couple of hours of relaxing music, including Between Now and 9. Francis Lye's Love Story, the Agnus Dei, Fauré's Requiem, and the Benedictus from Carl Jenkins, the On Now. All after Daniel Hope serenades us with the music of Elgar.
Oh, yeah. Johnson Davis. No trouble, eh?
Relaxing evenings on Classic FM.
La 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 la. Diddle-oo, diddly-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee. Ja. Oh. La 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 la. Santa Claus in the mistletoe last night. Right, here we go. Ah. Ah ha ha. Ah. Hello. Hello. Hello.
And anything this week?
Pardon?
The weather's been awful. But now it's all right. No, the weather's been all right.
Oh, yeah, it's snowing here, so it can hardly be better, can it, Anne?
No, I mean, oh, you might get some snow.
Snow
What's
you
that?
got it?
What?
Snowing in West Wales?
It's snowing in West Wales, Anne, you silly numped.
Yeah, lots of ice there.
Well,
Yeah.
you are in West Wales.
That's what we just said, you silly woman.
He's in
Oh.
his Iron Age house,
Mm.
built of concrete.
Mm.
Oh, it's cheating that, isn't it? Really cheating.
I got my washing on the line. I
Did
think
he
it might.
fall off?
Do you think it'd be frozen? Maybe. Well, what I did the other day was I accidentally put oil in my antifreeze.
You didn't, Anne? Oh dear.
Now it's getting bad, isn't it?
Oh dear.
Anne, I don't think you know what you're doing anymore. Hang on,
No.
Bill.
I,
Bill,
Yeah.
hang on. These walls here, right, are made of are made of chicken shit.
What was that?
What?
Oh, it's electricity supply. It's a fuse box. Yeah.
No, it's not. It's a bit of wood.
did you cover it in chicken poo?
Yes, it's not made of concrete at all. I gotta drive back after this anyway.
Oh no.
Yeah, I gotta get back because I've got to have my hair styled for a certain role, which I can't tell you about. Right, anyway, I gotta have to crack on.
Come on then, let's crack on.
So you don't tell us about the real roles, you just tell us about Father Christmas.
Hang on a minute, Anne. Hang on a minute, Anne. My agent said to me, right, that playing Santa is a real role, and I've got to take it seriously, right?
Okay.
And You've seen me playing Santa in a video, and I'm taking it seriously. Those children deserve to have a real Santa.
Yeah, I really thought how mature you were, you know.
Well, there you go. There you go. There you go. I better not wear this. I better not wear this top either.
No,
but
I
that's
don't
life.
think so. I don't think
I,
so.
yeah. I was thinking of dressing like a Wehrmacht officer, and then said, "Oh, I'm actually doing Santa, so I'll just change from this." You know. Anyway, let's crack on. See if I can get back into the flow of it. So, oh, by the way, I tell you a little story that I used to tell everybody in my classes years ago, and I don't think I've told it for a while. Now, you would think that this building itself there is one of the Brochs in Scotland, like this at Shetland, right?
Mm.
But it was brought to my attention about a week or so ago that there's really odd buildings on Sardinia, right? And
Oh,
these very, very odd buildings on Sardinia, right? Are structures that I will um, give you a little bit of a insight into now. They're Narajas, right? And on Sardinia,
oh,
there are 7,000 Narajas, and they don't all look like this. In fact, look like conical shaped towers like this. And they're conical shaped towers like this, very excited, with settlements around them, just like lots of the Brochs that we find in Shetland, right?
who's that?
But that's not me.
Oh,
Why would it be anyone? You know what I mean? Right. Anyway, so these Narajas, and they're spelled. They're not. They're that is obviously a Scottish Broch, but these buildings themselves are actually constructed before the Brochs. They're actually built on Sardinia, and there's a map of them. We know of at least, wait for it, 7,000 Narajas on Sardinia. Now we
Mirror.
know that. Shut up,
Mirror.
Anne, shut up. We know that, for example, at Shetland, Orkney, and Caithness in Scotland, there are hundreds and hundreds of Brochs. We don't know how many there are, right? Because we've not counted them all. But these Narajas on Sardinia, this much bigger, right? We know of about 7,000 of them. There's possibly that there were 10,000 in the past, right? And these were starting to be constructed. These dry stone conical buildings, right, were starting to be constructed around 4,000 years ago. Now, they're very, very interesting structures indeed, because you've got they look the same, the general layout and how we think about these structures. And they were just sort of, it was brought to me sort of a few weeks ago, and somebody said, well, these look like those Brochs in Scotland. They really, really do. Now, the significance of these is that they were probably built for very, very similar reasons to the Narajas that to the Brochs that we find in Scotland, right? And there's a lot of reasons why these structures were constructed. And I'm just chucking through my notes a minute to get a specific quote, right? So if you can bear with me a second, it should be directly in front of me, right? So there we go. Narajas, corridor. Right, this is what I wanted to read out. So what we've got is that's a Naraja there. I did this last night. Now when we think about these Brochs in Scotland, right, I've got to make a comparison. This is a Broch in Scotland, right? Now the Narajas, if you're going through a description of what these Narajas are actually for, it's exactly the same description as a Broch in Scotland. So this is the way I'm going to do it, right? So we're going to keep with the Broch of Musa in Scotland, right? On Shetland, but we're going to read the description of what a Naraja is on Sardinia, right? Which is an unusual thing to do, right? But the description is exactly the same, believe me. So when you think about it, right? So you can quickly see, hopefully this will work. You can quickly see the entrance there, right? So that's where we're going to start. So here we go. The entrance leads into a corridor. There we go. We got a nice little corridor there, on whose side are often open niches, which we're describing in Naraja now, not this Broch, that lead to the round chamber. There you go. There's a round chamber at the Broch in Scotland, but this again is about the description of Naraja. A spiral stone staircase that goes around the dome as it goes up. So you're looking at the Broch on the right, but again, you could be in a Naraja, leading to upper floors, exactly the same as the Brochs in Scotland. And then you've basically got all these little niches inside the Narajas that you've exactly got with the Brochs in Scotland. So the Narajic towers might have themselves a total height of up to 30 meters. Now, this one, Musa on Shetland, is a whopping 13 meters tall. Some of the Narajas were up to 30 meters tall, 100 feet tall. So when I actually went to the Broch of Musa, right, I looked up and I thought, oh my God, this is massive, right? The ones on Sardinia were twice the height of this, and they're dry stone, exactly like the ones in Scotland and Orkney. Now, they are dry stone, and these themselves fell out of use around, there's a precise date, 730 odd years BC. Those are the final dates that these ones were actually used on Sardinia. So it would take about another 200-300 years before we start building the Brochs in Scotland, right? And it's really odd that you've got similar buildings in similar areas, which is very odd. However, there's no links between these two cultures because they were made at different times in history. And also, Bill, can you come in with me on this? Do we know why the Brochs were made? Bill?
Well, immediately you think it's defensive, but the one we saw, on the east side of the mainland in Orkney, it was part of a settlement. You had an outer wall and smaller buildings there for living purposes. So
goodness.
So where was it a case of hierarchy and the top people actually lived in the Broch here?
But the answer is that we don't really have a clue, do we?
No, I remember the one in Rousay, Carl, that had a double wall, so you could actually climb up between the inner and outer wall, like that guy on the right. It only went so far. Only went so far, yeah, and it was semi-detached as well, as I remember.
Exactly. Well, exactly, Bill. So when you try to compare these two like structures, the one in Sardinia, and obviously it's 7,000. Yeah, it looks like this could be in Scotland. It really does. So there is no consensus on the function of the Narajas. They could have been rulers' residences. This is a smaller one. Military strongholds, meeting halls, as Martin Carruthers said about the one that he was excavating. He said it was like a meeting hall, the one he was excavating on South Ronnersley. Religious temples, ordinary dwellings, combination of these things. Some of the Narajas are, however, located in strategic places, like locks to the Brochs, aren't they? They're on the coast, aren't they, Bill? So from which important areas of the landscape were controlled. So that's the thing. And also, Bill, can you remember what they were saying, that they might have been easy to defend because you've got these narrow entranceways in them. And what is the thing that these have in common? Look at that. Look at the outside of that, Bill. And the ones in Sardinia, what's the one thing they got in common as well?
Well, they're round, of course.
They're conical shaped and there's no windows.
No windows, yeah. Mm.
No windows. And one of the things that we were actually talking about was that obviously that's one that's more developed, the one behind, because it's not exactly circular, but we've got a little circular one there and we've got another one there. But that's a little bit sort of more complex than a typical like the typical ones in Scotland. But it's basically looking at these and they projected out over the landscape. And I can remember one of the things that we were being told with the ones in Scotland, for example, that in the past, if these towers being like 15 meters tall, and then the ones on Sardinia being 30 meters tall, these would be some of the tallest objects within the landscape. These things towering over the landscape, whether it's 10 meters, 15 meters, 30 meters, right? These were the pyramids of Sardinia because they stood out over the landscape. For example, that thing there, the one at Musa, the Broch at Musa in Shetland, we stayed opposite in this lovely lady's house, and we actually had attic space, and there was like a dormer, and we could actually say, oh, we could see over to this, and it was like about 5 miles away, and you could see it quite clearly on the island. These things were meant to be seen.
Yeah.
And I just, yeah, go on, Bill.
Status symbols and possibly signaling towers to other Brochs miles away, maybe.
Yeah, you could see them. All of these things, you could see them dotted around the coast. So yeah, these there would be a sense of communication. And then obviously, we've got one in our village. You've got one in your village. We've all got one. But again, it's that sense of being able to produce these structures. And there was one last thing. Margaret, who was talking about these things, that she'd seen them when she went to Sardinia years ago. She said that inside, if you think of the similar layout to the Narajas as this one, at the finest one that we've actually got with ones in Scotland, we're talking about a double wall. So we've got, you can see it there on the inside. So you've got an external wall, then you've got lintels that connect it with the internal wall, right?
Yeah,
and they say that this had insulation factors. So in regards, when you're talking about Orkney and Shetland, the insulation factor was the fact that the cavity kept them warm, and with the way the ones were built on Sardinia, the cavities internally kept them cool.
It's the stones are much tighter together on Shetland. They're much sort of finer.
Yes. Because of the type of stone. When Bill and I saw it when we went to the likes of Rousey, when we saw the Broch of Mid Howe. Basically, they're quarrying the stone from alongside the Broch. So in other words, they can cut the stone directly, the lids of stone, and stack them. But there is one architectural flaw with lots of the Brochs. Particularly the ones, the Brochs in Scotland. Not with this one, but lots of the Brochs that we actually see, the stone is the same thickness throughout the Brochs. And one of the Brochs that me and Bill saw on Rousey mid Howe was that the stones, because they were the same thickness at the bottom as they were at the top, the stones at the bottom were cracked, and they were disintegrating with the weight of the stones above. So you've got to have big, like the one at the reason why the one at Mouse is still standing is it's got big stones at the bottom. Like the Naraja, like this Naraja, they got big stones at the bottom. So if you've got big stones at the bottom, then it can take the weight of the stones above. So I just thought,
Carl-james.
Oh right, yeah, the way the ones are built at Carl-james, the one on the left, yeah, exactly.
With the little things around,
the little dinky do buildings at Carl-james with the Fogu underground. Yeah, I remember that. Remember that. Right, now guys, we've gone on to something completely different. Now I'm going to read this out. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story. At the beginning of the year, somebody said to me, "Oh, can you do like a regular Roman series on TikTok?" So I thought, right, I'll take this regular daily series on YouTube, and it was like I managed to get to about 100 and something, right? And what it was, the challenge was that I looked at a Roman stone structure still standing in Britain. If it was under the ground, if it was earth, I wasn't to do it, right? It had to be stone remains. And I couldn't just look at the ones in Colchester and the ones in Bath and the ones in Calais, and I had to go all the way around the country. So I sat down with Michelle and I said, right, name a part of Britain. And she would say Inverness. And I said, right, Michelle, no, let's just Aberdeen. No, Michelle. Colchester, yeah, we'll do Colchester. A few days later, it's no, we can't do Colchester again. She said Winchester. And I thought, oh, we're going to find loads of remains in Winchester. Couldn't find a sausage except for a bit of Roman wall, which I was really happy to find. And then when she kept on mentioning London, I did lots of stuff in London. And then one day she said, "Oh, why didn't you do Hereford?" And I thought, right, okay. I come up with this. And I just read this. It said the remains of a Roman riverside complex, including 2 large stone buttresses and evidence of a mosaic floor, can be seen on the banks of the River Wye and the National Trust's the Weir Garden near Hereford. And I thought, oh, that sounds good. All it's going to be is a little couple of bits of stone.
Yeah, I've
anyway,
been there.
the Weir.
Yeah, been there. Yeah.
You've seen it then?
I've been there. Yeah, yeah.
But have you seen what I'm about to show you?
Yes, go on, carry on.
Okay. Anyway, so the location there it is near the Roman town of Magna Chester, which there's nothing to see there other than the mosaics in the Hereford Museum. Anyway, so the most prominent visible remains are 2 substantial stone buttresses, and one particularly 4 meters tall, right, with the northernmost buttress still standing at that height, making the tallest freestanding Roman structure in Herefordshire and one of the tallest structures in the whole of Roman Britain, right? But before I got there, I found out that in 2005, Time Team did an episode there, and they started finding lots of bits and pieces. So this is a stone planter, which had been holding geraniums, and basically identified by experts as a Roman Charles Coven. And do you know what? The person who would have been the presenter for one of these episodes, particularly this one, would have been me, but I turned Time Team down.
Oh,
Because I thought it was somebody winding me up. I've said this so many times before. It was roughly about 2004, and somebody phoned me up and said, "Oh, we're from Time Team. I'm Simon Rakes from Time Team, and we need somebody to present some episodes for us. Do you know anyone who's available to do it?" And I said, I thought it was a wind up, so I got another archaeologist to do it. And Simon Rakes phoned me up 2 weeks later. He said, "We would have preferred for you to do it, but the other guy who's now doing it, who did quite a few episodes, called Stephen Clark, and it wasn't a joke; it was for real." So an episode lost, folks. But this would have been, I would have been presenting on this one, but I never did. But anyway, so basically, this is back to, they found them some mosaics there. This is something that Time Team investigated, a nice little galosh pattern mosaic from the Cirencester School of Mosaic Makers. So that was there. And then I couldn't, I looked at this and I couldn't find images of what this was about. These I was interested in these 4-meter high. I couldn't find them. I looked over and over and over again. And suddenly I went to the National Trust site. There's very few images of this on the internet at all. And then there it is, the Weir Garden. And then I thought, hang on a minute, there's an image of it there. I found it on the National Trust website, and I thought, my God, that's 4 meters tall. I want to know more. I want to get and see it. And I said to Michelle yesterday, I said, I want to actually go and see this. I do.
yeah.
And then it's probably not the best time to see it because the river's going to be flooded. But look at that.
Yeah.
It might not look impressive to you, but that is Roman stonework. Obviously, it's been repointed. I've got an image of the other one that is not that impressive, but it's eroded into the river. But this is one of 2 buttresses, right? It's 4 meters tall. And that to me is significant because We don't get that type of masonry surviving in Britain, especially alongside a riverbank.
Hmm.
And it's such a big secret, this, that when I was doing my series looking at different Roman sites in Britain, I did actually come across a Roman villa. I can't remember where it was. I think it was in Wiltshire. And Michelle came up with a place, and I looked at it, and I found this Roman villa, right? And it's a Roman villa that you can only visit if you're a member of a certain club, right? That you pay a yearly subscription for, and then they allow you to see the Roman villa and the mosaics. So there's
Oh.
Roman villas and remains out in Britain that none of us know about because they're parts of little groups and sort of organizations. So and there is Roman remains within the National Trust own the weir near Hereford is the abutment on the Wye that is claimed to be the tallest freestanding Roman masonry in the UK. And there's also a Roman well nearby. The biggest problem with the well nearby, folks, is that that's seen reconstruction and it's been mucked around with and it's been moved around. So I'll probably be coming back to this one day, this site one day, but I might be coming back to it with actual images that I've actually taken myself.
Oh,
So I might
that
take a
would be
trip
good.
out here. And you never know. We could
Yeah.
organise a little excursion.
Yeah.
There you go. So I've done that now, and I'm very wary that I've got maximum of 30 minutes now. So it don't matter. It's fine, and it's actually the time was worked out quite well tonight. So yeah, I want to see that. So the next thing, I was looking on the internet, and this was something on like I don't know, TikTok or Facebook or something like that, and I thought it basically read, at the Temple of Apollo in Pompeii stands a column with a strange looking semicircular block on top. Right, I have got better images than this, by the way, and look at that. Yes, it looks like a sundial. It's a marble sundial, right, on the top of a column near a temple
Oh.
in Pompeii, right? And I thought I had to look at this, and I thought it seems completely out of place and doesn't seem to match its surroundings. But this oddity is something that we would consider somewhat modern in our time-obsessed modern society. A sundial on the top of a column, known as a hemicyclum. It was allegedly invented by Berossus of the Palatine, and Vitruvius wrote about it. He was also quite a scientific writer. So basic is by a temple, the forum. It has a simple function. Shadow from the pin in the center indicates the time of day. Now, again, you think about that, it seems simple enough, but it really is a testament to scientific advancements made in the Roman world. And again, I thought this was a nice little thing to sort of show you, and there it is, and people could have looked at that and thought, right, we know what time it is. And remember, Pompeii is one of those places where it's going to be sunny most of the time, because when Henry went there, he bought an ice cream, and by the time he gave the other ice cream to his missus, it melted. The true reality is that Henry ate both ice creams and he used the excuse of the sun melting them. But the fact of the matter
reality, it's bloody hot there.
in reality, it's bloody hot there, so you didn't buy an ice cream at all. But the
You
fact
can't
of the
buy, you
matter
can't
is,
buy an ice cream in
Fry
there.
your egg on the pavement.
it's not well. It could be
buy
that hot.
water or ice cream inside Pompeii.
Why is that? Tell us.
The stalls are all outside.
But you can't take you. Can you take a bottle of water in with you to drink?
have to. You must take water in with you because otherwise you're going to be probably very dead by the end of the day.
Oh.
Can I just ask you? This is something that I was interested in years ago. Have they actually started from your point of view? And I want, because what they've done is they've got that stuff that they've recently excavated and they put a roof over it. And it looks great. Images that you provided, but have they got any signs that they might be reconstructing big sections of Pompeii as like a reality situation? Is that going to happen? Do you see any signs of that, Henry?
None that I saw.
Mm.
And the
Right.
work that was going on, I would say, was very piecemeal and Italians paced.
Right, okay, we'll leave that.
So watch this space for the next 20 years.
Yeah, exactly,
Well,
exactly.
if Trump gets his way,
Oh, shut up about Trump. We can't talk politics. Anyway, so there, thank you for that, Henry. So there's our sundial, and it's interesting that it's actually sat on an ionic capital, which with the ionic capital, that would be like a hail to ancient Greece. So maybe you know, we've got that sort of hail in there to sort of have this sundial, but again, I often think of the Antikythera mechanism that was found in the beginning of the 1900s of the island of Antikythera, and I'm just thinking that there was massively advanced technology. It's just that very little of it survived. And again, folks, and again, when you think about even when you think about Pompeii, right? And I don't think I've made this analogy. Even when you think about Pompeii, um, even Pompeii, big chunks of it don't survive. This is a temple, right? This is in the heart of Pompeii. Most of this isn't there, right? So even where you should find a big chunk of the past still standing, it's not, right? So what chance have we got in regards to when you look at Rome, 5% survives, 5 to 10%. So what chance have we got of the smaller things surviving? Very, very little, except for something like this, the Antikythera mechanism and a few other bits and pieces surviving from the ancient world. And there is another little image of it there. So, as a little bit of news this week, I thought this was quite light. This was actually quite lightweight. And this came out the other day. Archaeologists find unique blood red gemstone at Roman fort north of Hadrian's Wall. And there it is. Really nice little intaglio. And what we can actually see, right? We can actually see specifically a figure there, a nymph figure. There's also another nymph figure, which I do believe above. You can see the legs. And let's have a little discussion of something very small, not like a temple, something very small. So archaeologists discovered the engraved gemstone at Bremenium, which is a fort north of Hadrian's Wall. So excavations at a Roman fort in England north of Hadrian's Wall have revealed a unique engraved gemstone depicting a grape harvesting scene from Roman mythology. So something like this would not be something that you would usually find at a site associated with Hadrian's Wall. So the red stone was likely originally set in a signet ring used by a Roman man as his personal correspondence stamp. Now, don't jump up and down like I usually would when it says it's a man's intaglio. It would be, because if this is a woman's intaglio, it wouldn't be like this, because her gold and her rings would be covered up, right? And it's likely that she wouldn't have an intaglio like this for sort of a stamp, correspondence stamp. Women's roles in Roman society were very different from men. They were to be covered up and not seen, except Roman women in Britain were slightly different. So design is thought to be unique in Britain. So when they're saying that this is unique in Britain, right, it does make you think that we don't have a lot surviving from the ancient Roman world. Do you remember that little pot with cream on it a few weeks ago that I showed you was found in 2003 and associated with my mate Nancy Rosenberg? I mentioned that, and I thought, that's one of how many found in Britain? One. So these things are incredibly rare, but it doesn't mean to say that there weren't loads of them. Bremenium itself is a very interesting fort north of Hadrian's Wall, and it was actually built before Hadrian's Wall. Yes, built before Hadrian's Wall. So probably associated maybe about AD 90, 20, 30 years before Emperor Hadrian. So Bremenium, and obviously with this, so archaeologists have been excavating at that fort since 2021, obviously excavating a rare lime kiln. And what I said last night, was that this article is a bit longer. There's actually a lime kiln that they've actually discovered here, which might be interesting to actually show you, and maybe give you a little bit more information about that next week. And it's sort of talking about various other objects that they've actually found there. You know, clay jugs and so on, amphora that actually came from Spain. So or you never know, it may have actually come from Volobulus, which is in Morocco, because we know that they had olive oil as well. So, and the other thing as well is one thing that I not really mentioned is that when you find objects like amphora on a Roman site, you're not just thinking about wine, and you're not just thinking about sauerkraut, which is like a gone off fish paste that the Romans loved on toast. Actually, you can actually they used to actually transport grain in them as well. So just because we find amphora doesn't mean to say that there was olive oil or wine in them. It might actually mean to say that they actually transported grain in them. So actually, strangely enough, Goff, we're getting much quicker through this class than I actually realized, right? So we might actually be finished a lot earlier. I don't know how I managed to do another 40 minutes longer last night, but we're getting to the end. I actually thought that this was a really weird little piece, but we still have to mention a little bit about Boudica. So
I've
I'll
been
probably
to
have to.
Nam Hill.
We've been there with you, Carl. Yeah,
Oh,
we have.
Somerset.
I went
Hamburg.
there.
Somerset.
Yeah, yeah.
I went there before that.
Don't get too excited, Anne. Anyway, Anne, you don't have to compete with us all the time. So, tomb collapse exposes underground crypt from 1700s. Now, I was reading this and it said it's from the 9th of November, and I thought, right, this is a really interesting piece, and it's really interesting because the article is really badly written because it doesn't really make sense what's going on. So, an ancient box tomb, there we go, which is on top, collapsed, thought to be built in the 1700s, has collapsed into a large underground crypt. Now, when it's saying that the box tomb above, which is a bit more clearly there, right, from the 1700s, probably late 1700s, right, is that box tomb associated with the crypt underneath, or is the crypt underneath associated with a medieval site? It's not really clear in this place. So it says the 3.6-meter hole opened up at All Saints Church in Martock, Somerset, the evening before Remembrance Sunday.
Oh,
And you're just thinking people could have been stood there, and you don't even think about it, right?
no.
On Remembrance Sunday. So Martock Parish Church, which is responsible for the upkeep and maintenance of the churchyard, which is now secure, they put safety barriers up around it. And there's a Reverend Fillery said the 300-year-old tomb had caved quite suddenly into a large sinkhole, which they do believe is a crypt. And if I'm reading this right, it might be a crypt of a very, very early church that they've actually found that's just opened up. He added they could sadly no longer read the inscription, and it's all a big pile of rubble. It is currently unclear whether the collapse has damaged surrounding graves. We are working together with the parish council and taking expert advice from the diocese as the best way forward. All Saints Church was built over several centuries, with parts dating back to the 1200s. So this could be a crypt from the 1200s or earlier, and lots of rebuilding from the 14 and 1500s. So there is that is so odd. That other box tomb along the sides is probably going to be likely to be in it. The problem is, from an archaeological point of view, there's 2 points with this. The church still has different rules of planning than normal planning, right? They've got their own rules, right? So they're not obliged to bring in archaeologists to do the work there, right? Because they're outside, archaeological jurisdiction in some ways, but they're going to probably have to get archaeologists in there, forensic archaeologists, to sort of deal with the one set of remains which is associated with that chest tomb, and then excavate there and excavate the crypt, and to try to get an idea what's in the crypt. And if I was an archaeologist doing the work there, I would. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of work and a lot of safety stuff involved. And so excavating the crypt, working out the dates of the bones in the crypt, re-establishing everything, putting the bones back into the crypt, reconstructing the chest tomb, putting the bones back into the chest tomb, and then so you're talking about for a job like that, you're talking about 100 grand. So I don't know how the church is going to find the money to do that. I really don't. But that's a massive job. But it's really interesting to see something like that. We don't know the date of the hole, by the way. It could be a lot older. So can you guys entertain me in the sense of listening to a little story that I haven't told for a while, right? And then I'm going to take a tiny little bit of a breather, mention Boudica for a little bit, just about a few minutes, and then we'll call it a night. Now, this is a story I haven't told for a very, very long time. And it's linked to, there's a link to do with these images. It's linked to do with a hole in the ground, right? So I used to tell this story a lot. So 50 years ago now, right? In a sort of churchyard monastery outside Paris, right? There was talk of a crypt underneath sort of this ruined site, this ruined sort of abbey, right? And there was talk of this crypt. Anyway, these two lads were wandering around this graveyard this one day, and they couldn't find where this crypt was, and they found this big slab, and they thought, oh wow, we found the entranceway to this crypt. But these were two British lads, right? They weren't French, and there was an inscription on this, and the inscription in French Latin, yes, we'll tell you what that says in a few moments. Anyway, so these two lads went into a church graveyard. They had crowbars and they had this one torch with them, right? This is again 50 years ago. And they waited to dusk. There was nobody around, but they were being watched. Important. And they crowbarred this big slab up, right? And they eventually moved the slab away to the side, and there was these steps that they shone down. They thought, oh my God, we found the crypt, right? So at this point, the John Dam had been called. So these two lads challenged each other. Are you going to go down the crypt? And the other one said, I'll go down the crypt. There's just going to be a load of old bones down there, right? So the one went down with the torch, right? And the other went down, and suddenly the torch died, right? It's like something out of an Alfred Hitchcock film. So they went down, and the one lad was saying, I think there's bones over here. And the other one said, oh, wow, I can feel some material. And he was feeling the material, and he said, it's like loose material, right? And it's like on some kind of a shelf, right? And the other lad come over and said, that's not material, that's hair, right? So they're touching around and hair. And then the next thing, there was a light above, right? So shouting down in French, you are not to come back up, right? We need to seal off this site. These two boys panicked, right? And went to run up the stairs, and they had guns pointing at them. And then somebody started speaking English to them, right? They weren't to leave that because it had been sealed off, because the inscription on the slab said, do not open up this crypt because these are plague victims. They had put them all on shelves. It was a plague victim crypt, right? Because they had an old crypt, they stacked them in there, and the tragic thing about this was because now it had been opened to the open air. They had to tent off the area. They had to put hazmat suits on, right? These two boys were then placed into a tent. They had to be washed down, and then the site was sealed off, and they had to set light to the crypt down below without any further examination, because these were plague victims. And if they had got out of there, there would have been a plague outbreak in Paris 50 years ago.
Wow.
And that is a true story. So what I'm going to do, I want to tell you a little bit about Boudica. I've got to let the cat in a minute. I've got to let the cat out the bag. Come on, Marley. Oh, come on, Marley. Let's get our German cat. Come on, German cat. Fan wants to see you. Here we go. Hang on a minute. Where's that book? Hang on a minute. I just got to find my book. Right. Okay. Here we go. Right, and I got to show you the German cat. Right, here we go. Hang on a minute. Let me get this off a minute. There we go. And look at him. Isn't he a big cat?
Oh,
He's a massive cat.
oh, they're really,
So
yes, really.
we got
too.
two cats. Two cats.
There's not
Right.
many black cats around.
No, that's because they've all been burned. That's because they've all been burned. Right. So, right. Here's my book. I did promise a little bit about Boudica, so we're going to do this now. So, I decided tonight to do all those things, and I know there was a few people away on Tuesday, so I just thought that I wanted to introduce Boudica, right? Or Boudica, or Boadicea, or Boothig. So we'll just read this little bit by here, and then we'll call it a day. So here we go. The blood-soaked rebellion of Boudica is arguably the most famous event in the story of the Roman occupation of Britain, and that is undeniable. It almost ended the Roman presence in the islands here around AD 60 and saw the legionaries and auxilia fighting in the most extreme conditions with their backs up against the wall. Defeat would have meant the destruction of not one, but 4 whole legions and their auxiliary and officials and thousands of innocent civilians. On a scale even larger than the loss of Varus's 3 legions in the Teutoburg forest in Germany in AD 9 at the hands of Arminius. The context behind the dramatic event was the earlier death of the Iceni king Prasutagus, Boudica's husband, a Roman client king. In his will, he left his kingdom to his 2 daughters and also to Nero. As detailed above, the Romans usually left their kingdom entirely to the Romans after their deaths, and the emperor reacted predictably when he heard the news of Prasutagus' unusual arrangement. So in other words, what should have happened is that when the king died, it went to Rome, but Prasutagus said, I want some of it to go to my daughters. The dead king's will was naturally ignored by Nero, and the territory of the Iceni quickly folded into the expanding province of Britannia, to the disdain of Boudica and her 2 daughters. Cassius Dio, describing her appearance as very much the warrior queen, he says in Roman history, she was very tall and stern. Her look was penetrating, her voice harsh. A mass of auburn hair fell to her hips, and around her neck was a heavy golden torque. She wore a patterned cloak with a thick cape over it fastened with a brooch. Boudica protested against the treatment of her kingdom. Tacitus says the Roman response was brutal in the extreme. He details the Iceni territory was pillaged by centurions, the dead king's household ransacked by slaves, Boudica lashed, and her 2 daughters raped. It is worth noting here that Dio gives a completely different and far more mundane reason for Boudica leading a revolt. He says, here we go, and this is where we'll finish today. This is Cassius Dio, not Tacitus. An excuse for the revolt was found in the confiscation of the sums of money that Claudius had given to the foremost Britons. For these sums, Decanus Catus, the procurer of the island, maintained were to be paid back. So in other words, the money, Cassius Dio said, the money that was given to the nobles of Britain to keep them quiet, to allow the Romans to take over, a bribe, were to be handed back to Rome. This was one reason for the uprising. Another was found in the fact that Seneca, another Roman statesman and writer, in the hope of receiving a good rate of interest, had lent the islanders 40 million sesterces that they did not want, and had afterwards called in this loan all at once and had resorted to severe measures in exacting it. So in other words, Cassius Dio was saying Seneca had given money to the nobles of Britain that they did not want. And then Seneca said, right, I want the money back with interest. And if you don't give it back to me, the Romans are going to take it by force. And apparently Boudicca didn't like this. And in return, a rebellion ensued. That's my
Oh,
notes for today.
mm,
It's 9:07.
mm.
I'm really trying to work out whether I should do Boudica next week. But I will see how it goes. We'll see how the land lies, where things go. So let's see now. This is
Hello,
Marley.
hello, Marley.
This
Hello,
is
Marley.
my cat. He doesn't speak German this when he speaks Welsh. Right, Anne, anything you want to say?
Oh, well, it's like a magazine program, isn't it? It's like an encyclopedia. The classes, you give us stuff that hasn't been done before, which is great. And that's why I've got a new notebook.
Good.
One too.
And yeah, so that's good. It helps you feed your mind,
Good. Yeah, I appreciate that. And the reason why all of you should have a copy of Romans in South Wales is because we're going to be referring to them soon in the classes. So that's why I need to make sure that everybody's got a copy. So anything you want to say, Goff? Dan, you've got about 5 copies. What's that, Goff?
No, it's very lots of interesting subjects. Thank you. But if I had a German cat, I'd call it Adolf.
No, I can't do that. Please, no. But then again, Adolf was a very popular name. It's just that,
I know.
yeah.
Call Adolf.
Yeah. Was your grandfather called Adolf?
Hey, Anne, stop it. Talking about Adolf, the Right Honourable Bill, who's been pinned tonight. I don't know why. I don't know where you got a pin with your name, Bill. Nobody else has. Bill, anything you want to say?
Well, not just to endorse what Anne said, really. You've covered a lot of subjects. I quite like that, actually, spending 10 minutes on this and 5 minutes on that. So rather than one specific subject for 2 hours, I think it's the way to go, actually. Can't split it up if you can. Just have 4, 5, or 6 subjects, maybe. Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
Because when it goes on one subject, I tend to switch off after a while. So you keep everything fresh by doing just 10 minutes of this and switching subjects to another one, blah, blah, blah. Maybe something you can think about for the planning of future talks.
It's probably more
actually, the 3 of you seem to think the same so far. I haven't done the other 2, but I've been finding that it gets frustrating that people provide really good stuff, and I can't fit it in. So some weeks I got loads of interesting stuff, and I'm starting to think, well, why don't I just try and put this into like a program, which we're doing. And this is why I'm very thanks, Bill. This is why I'm very vague about saying whether I'm going to do Boudica in full next week. What I might do is take a little bit of a stab at Boudica next week, and then do a load of other things. And that's probably the way to go. It's the way my mind is sort of working these days. And it's the problem is the problem is in the past, right? I didn't realize this at the time, but in the past, Goff was there. We used to sit in the class in Lantwick Major with like 15 people, 20 people or whatever, and everyone used to bring in press cuttings, and I used to go home with like 30 press cuttings, and Goff would turn around and say, "Well, aren't we going to be doing any of the press cuttings from last week?" And I'm saying, "Goff, I've got another 30 now, right?" And it would be I could never really catch up with it. But because we've got a smaller group now and people come up with a little bit, right, I'm able to fit her in. So that really starting to work. And it's because of you guys. This is the direction that we're in. And I've actually realized that with my column in the local newspaper, because I'm doing like the Barry history in the newspaper with upstanding buildings. and I've got people writing into the newspaper wanting me to add bits, and I'm adding bits into that column, and then I'm rejigging what I'm having to do this week. I apologized to the newspaper this week. I thought, well, it's like 1,000 words long this week, not 500, but that's the way to go, because that is the way to go. So yeah, thanks for that. Thanks for that input, you three. Pat, anything you want to say?
No, I enjoyed it. I had trouble with my computer, and now I'm running out of power. So the variety.
All right then. Well, it's good that we're finishing in a couple of minutes then for you. So, Henry, anything you want to say?
No, I thought it was very interesting. I think I quite like the Sardinian approach. Be more intrigued to find out a bit more on some of these islands. What was going on?
And I think one of the areas that I secretly know a lot more about than I let on is Cyprus, and I never do it. And I don't know why, but one of the biggest blocks that I've always got is subjects that I probably know a lot more about than that I don't say. Right. And I should probably be doing a bit more of that. We don't live forever. And so when you mentioned islands, Cyprus is an island, so maybe we could do a little bit more there. There's so much in some of these places like Cyprus to look at.
Yeah.
And we just don't do it. And we've mentioned the likes of Santorini and Crete and a little bit of Rhodes, but we don't do sort of Lesbos or sort of Cyprus or all these other little ones.
Yeah.
So anything else from you, Henry, before we finish?
It. That's great. And as I enjoyed the format.
Okay, I appreciate that, and onwards and upwards and more of that. Then yeah. And again, Goff, you've got to be firm with me, and you've got to say I want to finish at 9:15. So that's the way we'll go. So. Okay, then. I might tell you if I manage to drag Michelle out to see Nuremberg. I'll tell you how Santa Claus went on Saturday next week. If nobody else has got anything else to say, I'm going to say goodnight to Pat, Anne, Goff, Bill, and wonderful Henry. And I'll see you next Wednesday. Thanks for joining us.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
All stay safe and have a good week.
You have a great week and enjoy.
And you.
Don't go to Nuremberg in a German uniform.
Oh no. Oh, you could.
No, I would be arrested, Anne. It's an arrestable offence to go to Germany in a Reich uniform. Right. Thank you very much.
Okay.
She'll be telling me to fly a bloody swastika in bloody Nuremberg next. Oh my God. Could you imagine that? I'd be definitely on the news. I'd be lined up against the bloody thing and shot.
I think you better take yourself offline. Be safer.
Yeah, I think I should. They're there. They're listening.
Yeah. Have a good week.
Have a good week. Thanks for your contributions, Henry. Anything there? Brilliant. It was great to do Pestham as well. Brilliant.
Yeah. Bye for now. Oh, I didn't tell you actually. One of the things with Pestham is to see the gate that goes to the port. You stand it. You see the ruts in the road where the wagons obviously came, because obviously it was a port city.
Yeah.
But it's no longer near the sea. It's about half a mile away.
I like that. Ruts in road gate. Do you know what? I might add that next week. So we got the silk. I want to do the Silk Route Iron Age thing. So we've got that next week, and I want to continue that article on the that fort in Scotland. So okay, yeah, brilliant.
Right.
All right, then. Well,
I'll leave you in peace.
Leave me and the cats to peace, and I'll see you soon.
Adios.
Adios, amigo. See you soon. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Night. Thanks for joining us. Night. Bill, we finished, Bill. So I'm just going to wrap this up online. I'm going to see if there's anybody who's actually said anything. Nobody else has said anything. Oh my God. Oh my God. People online. Hi, Squirrel on break. Was this after the build, the star thoughts all of you? We know with records Romans went to China. Yes, we do. The towers on the wall, actually, that's not the Chinese measurement, it's imperial. Yeah, he's got Wall of China for stuff and interesting comparisons. You know, if anyone's out there listening and watching, it's like, and obviously maybe do a sort of another type of live in the week so people can ask questions. But anyway, I'm going to look in the chat box. I've got to drive back now. I got Lucas out. I got to lock the cats up. Let the window open for them. Anyway, so I'm going to look in the chat box. Nothing in the chat box 1. Nothing in chat box 2, 3, 4, 5. Nothing in chat box 6, 7, 8, 9. Nothing in the chat box 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Nothing in the chat box 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. What am I doing? All right, nothing in that window 1, nothing in that window 2, nothing in that window 3, nothing in that window 4, nothing in that window 5, nothing in that window 6, and nothing in that window 7. 7. Nosta chi, gwelwch chi eto ymwyr o hyd. Nosta, thanks for joining us next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, 7:10. See you then online, Zoom, YouTube.